The One Piece TCG feels unstoppable right now, and while everyone's focused on the hype, I personally think there may be some forces that are coming our way in 2026 that will definitely impact this One Piece bull run. Welcome back to Treasure Theory, guys. Today is going to be a very interesting video because I want to talk about three catalysts, three forces that I think are coming in the next year that will definitely impact what we're currently experiencing in the One Piece TCG. It will impact the value of the cards, the prices, all sorts of things, and we're going to get right into it. But guys, before we do, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for helping me hit 5,000 subscribers. You guys have been super supportive and awesome. I love that you guys leave comments and help me out, so really do appreciate it. Let's now move the mark to 6,000 subscribers. Can we hit 6,000 before the end of the year? Hey, that'd be super awesome. But either way, guys, thank you, and let's get into it. So guys, the One Piece TCG is still currently experiencing breakneck speeds when it comes to the prices of a lot of the cards. We've had a lot of forces at play here that have been skyrocketing the cards. Like, I mean, look at this, $8,000 on the most recent Gear 5 Luffy card. We've got cards like Shanks going up 60%. I actually think the the first manga has been shooting up quite nicely as well. This card's been selling for about 2,300 US. We've seen the treasure rares blowing up. We're seeing SPs blowing up right now. I mean, BOA has been absolute insanity. So on and so forth. We've been talking about this a lot lately, so I'm going to save you the details there. But what if I told you that a decision outside of collectors, investors, and players could absolutely wreck this market right now? Which brings me to the first catalyst. Now, I want to preface by saying I don't necessarily think this first catalyst is likely to happen, but I do think 2 and 3 actually are more likely to happen in 2026. So what is the first catalyst I want to talk about? Well, guys, if Bandai decides, for whatever reason, that this situation is getting out of hand and makes the decision to do reprints, we are going to see prices absolutely drop. Now, this is a very obvious point I wanted to make here because we've actually seen this happen in Pokemon. We saw this happen with Prismatics. I remember when Prismatics first came out a little over, what was it, like a year ago now or something like that. I remember this was the first time I really started seeing the scalping situation take off with Pokemon. Now, at the time, I wasn't really too crazy with investing with Pokemon and stuff like that, but I literally hadn't seen the Prismatic box at all, okay? I literally didn't even know what it looked like for the longest time because everywhere I went, you couldn't find it. But Pokemon, nonetheless, did reprint this set, and we saw the prices were impacted. Take a look. The top Umbreon card, this card sells for so much money. Yes, it's gone up 15% in 3 months, but let's look at this. 6 months, it's down 22%. Now, this is the grail of this set. It's kind of hard to make an example specifically out of that one, but as we look through the other grails in this set, we can see there's definitely been a price drop since the reprint has happened, and I will admit I have been seeing the set a lot more now in stores and stuff like that. I know Costco was selling these as well, I think. And anyways, we can see based on the data alone when the reprints were out and we saw the prices drop down. Now, that isn't a guaranteed thing for One Piece. I really don't think Bandai is going to do that. I think the people at Bandai are pretty smart, and I think that One Piece is their goose egg right now. I think they're totally loving the fact that this card game has been blowing up. They've been good with the scarcity. They've been good with all of these really cool looking cards, not to mention the quality of these cards has been absolutely insane. I actually just recently ordered this card myself. I'm super excited to get the silver version. The gold version is awesome too, and all that, but man, the prices are just completely crazy, okay? And you got to take what you can get. But I don't necessarily think this catalyst is going to happen in 2026. But guys, the truth is we simply will not know until it happens. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up in the video, because while I think Bandai is being very smart about the whole One Piece situation, they might change management, they might just decide, hey, you know what, we're going to do this. Too many people are complaining. Anything could happen, guys. Anything could absolutely happen, and we need to be aware of that. I mean, again, I don't think it will happen, but if they did do that, I do think it's going to impact prices. Now, we do know that Bandai has done reprint sets, and they've done really well, and that's great. But I'm not talking about this sort of stuff here. I'm talking about really complete reprint runs on older sets, like Paramount War or, Romance Dawn, which we've seen insane prices on. But I don't think this is going to happen. I think Bandai is pretty smart, and I think we're going to continue seeing the One Piece TCG become a very successful TCG. So let's move on to the next catalyst that I think is most likely to happen. So if you've been watching my latest videos, you know that I've been complaining a lot about this whole Gengar Nami situation. If you don't know what I'm talking about, people from outside the One Piece community, mainly from the Pokemon community, who were already disliked in the Pokemon community, by the way, have come in and decided that this Nami card is the Gengar of One Piece. Because of Zeus. Because of Zeus. They think Zeus looks like Gengar. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy, and I just think it's just so funny, and it's just a perfect example of not really knowing what you're getting involved in. And I also need to say real quick, you know, I've tried to not be super negative about this whole situation. I've definitely had some people kind of attack me about this. Listen, if you're new to One Piece and you don't really understand the characters, the story, all this sort of stuff, listen, there's no hate towards any of you guys. Seriously, there's so many people, there's thousands of people discovering One Piece for the first time every day, especially the One Piece TCG, and no one is ragging on you for that. We welcome you with open arms. It's just when we've got people who are in the, you know, they're being dubbed the Pokebro investors, but the people who are in the Pokemon world, the scalpers, the manipulators who were already disliked in the Pokemon world, who decided to jump ship into One Piece because they were like, this is the next thing, we're going to pump this up, which we're clearly seeing here with this card that is now up 1,220%. It is just absolutely hilarious, which brings me to Catalyst 2, which is when these Pokebro manipulators finally get tired of the One Piece TCG and leave, prices will drop. Now, One Piece is huge and has been growing steadily over the last couple of years, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that One Piece is only getting popular and the prices are going up because of the Pokebro guys, because that is not the case. But listen, this Nami card, there's no reason for it to be this expensive. This is from a promo set that you could have bought at any time, and it's probably gone up in price now, but it was cheap from when it came out, and like there's just nothing rare about this card, okay? And for it to go up 1,220% is silly. It's just silly to me. Now, if this card went up 1,220%, it would make a little more sense, although good luck doing that because this card's so expensive. But as we can see, guys, you know, a card that is not even significant in its scarcity and its rarity is being pumped, and it's tricking people, right? But once these people eventually get bored of One Piece, or maybe they just, maybe something new and shiny comes up in Pokemon, I think if they all leave the ship and go over there again, I think we'll see a price impact on the One Piece cards. Now, maybe they'll sit on cards like this Gengar Nami card for a little while just to see what happens. But as new sets come out, we might actually see the prices aren't really matching what we're seeing with older sets because people are just going to stop buying up every single card they can. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens there. But it is an interesting idea to think that, if these outside forces do eventually decide to leave in 2026, that it will impact the price of One Piece cards. Now, in the long term, I don't think this is going to be the case. I do think One Piece cards are going to do pretty well long term. I mean, I just watched the recent episode that they released. Egghead is about to end, and it is just bringing tears to my eyes. The animation, the quality, the storytelling, everything. It's so awesome and impactful. And, if anyone is out there starting to get into the One Piece anime and you're reading it and you're starting to get into the TCG, we all know that this isn't going anywhere, okay? But nonetheless, that is pretty much it for Catalyst 2. If these guys do decide to stop manipulating prices, we might see that reflective in 2026 if they do decide to leave ship. And again, with Mega Evolutions coming out, the next sets that are on their way, if Pokemon, if these guys decide that this is going to be the next big thing in Pokemon, that might actually be what makes them leave. But without any further ado, guys, let's get into the last catalyst. So as I said in the beginning of the video, this catalyst is more likely to occur in 2026. And what is that exactly? Well, guys, it is forces completely outside of the One Piece TCG in general, and it's focusing more on the economy and the macro and just what's going on in the world right now, what's going on in Canada and the United States and Japan and all this sort of stuff. And essentially, guys, if you don't know much about the current state of the economy, I can tell you right now, it's not hard to go find a couple of news articles to see how bad it really is. Now, I'm not going to speak too much on the U.S. because I don't actually know too much about it, but I can tell you, somebody living in Canada right now, the tariff situation, the state of the economy, post-COVID, everything has been dire. Canada has been in a very, very bad situation. Now, the United States, from what I've heard from friends and from things that I've read, the United States isn't doing too great either. There's been a lot of disruption going on with these tariffs and all this sort of stuff. Prices are going up, and it's been absolute insanity. Christmas is around the corner. People are struggling to pay their bills, all this sort of stuff. Food prices are going up. They've actually said that food prices here in Canada are going to go up 10% next year. Things are getting a little scary, if I'm being honest with you. And, with all this being said, guys, I don't think people are going to be able to keep up with the prices of One Piece cards or the sets or all of this madness when they're struggling to pay their bills or they're struggling to eat. And while there are definitely some wealthy individuals who are, putting their hands in the pot here and really enjoying the One Piece TCG, there are plenty of people who are big fans of the One Piece TCG, who want to play, who want to collect their favorite cards, and they simply cannot afford the prices here. I mean, everyone's getting priced out, which is happening slowly. We're seeing it with housing. We're seeing it with, how many people out there can afford a house? How many people out there can even afford rent these days? There's very real factors happening outside the One Piece TCG, and, I'm sorry if this is a little too negative for you, and I'm sorry if, the card game is kind of a way to just kind of like not think about that stuff. But guys, if you're serious about investing and collecting and playing, you gotta know what you're getting involved in. This is a market of some kind, and, that prices, the economy is reflective of that. And the other thing too that I wanted to talk about is I've done some economic courses in university, and the way economics and data is collected is very skewed and is very manipulative. And I'll give you an example. If you're somebody who's unemployed for longer than, I believe, 4 weeks, and you've been looking for a job but you can't find a job, you will basically get scrubbed out of the statistics of unemployment. So what I mean is, you're no longer in the labor force. You're no longer part of the unemployed. You're literally not even there. The data that they collect is very skewed, and you can't believe everything you read, because if you have a higher knowledge of economics, you know that this is not the case. They keep saying we're not in a recession. We're in a recession, okay? They keep changing what it means to be in a recession. There's just a lot of really interesting things going on in the world right now, and forgive me if this is a little boring or whatever the case, but I just wanted to let you guys know that if things don't improve in 2026, if things start getting worse, getting more expensive, groceries, bills, everything, these prices will not stabilize. These prices will crash, because no one's going to be buying any of this. And the people who are propping up the prices of these cards will start realizing that, hey, this isn't going anywhere, and perhaps the One Piece TCG compared to Pokemon is still smaller, and people just might decide to jump ship. Now, at the end of the day, if you're someone who has been looking for these prices to drop, I'm sure some of this is exciting to you, and I'm sure you'd like this to happen. But, guys, there is no crystal ball here. I have absolutely no idea if any of this is going to come true. This is all speculation. But we've got to be vigilant, and we've got to be smart with how this is all going. And, a little bit of economics goes a long way, and I could be completely wrong. But I do think those are 3 potential catalysts that could occur in 2026 that would impact the prices of these cards. Now, these One Piece cards might continue to go up and up and up and up and up, and I really wouldn't be able to tell you where the price stops. But nothing goes up in a straight line forever, guys. It really doesn't. And, the One Piece market is no different. And I know the scarcity in One Piece is a lot less than Pokemon, but certain factors can still be at play here. And imagine if all 3 of these catalysts came true next year. That would be devastating to the One Piece market. But anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts. And if you've got any other ideas on what could happen in the One Piece market, be sure to let me know. But I hope you did enjoy this video. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.